Imagine standing in a cathedral so vast, your footsteps echo like ghostly whispers through the vaulted stone. The air is thick with incense and silence. Dozens of nobles hold their breath, watching a girl so small her crown slips sideways on her head. She's 6 years old. Her groom, 29, a king. And you. You're the priest about to bind them for eternity. Your hands tremble, but not from cold, from knowing this isn't a wedding, it's a sacrifice. This is the story of Isabella. The queen history tried to forget. A child bride offered for peace, a pawn in the deadliest game of kings. You feel the chill before you even enter the abbey. Not from the wind, it's from the silence. The kind that sinks into your bones. The kind that feels like standing too close to a grave. Candles flicker along the stone walls, their flames twitching like nervous eyes. You walk slowly down the aisle, prayer book in hand, eyes fixed on the altar. But it's not the altar that steals your breath. It's the sight coming toward it. The king enters first. Richard, tall and radiant in his gold-stitched robes, his crown catching the morning light like fire. He walks with the poise of someone who knows the world bends to his will. And then, beside him, she appears. A child. She barely reaches his waist. Her dress is heavy with French embroidery, pearls woven into her dark braids. They weigh her down. Each step seems too much. Her hand disappears inside his gloved one, and for a moment you wonder, how can he not feel how small she is? How fragile? You weren't told her age. Not exactly. But you can see it now. 6. Maybe 7. And suddenly the words in your prayer book feel obscene. You glance toward the nobles in their polished armor and velvet cloaks. None of them flinch. To them this is politics. Peace with France. An end to bloodshed. A girl's a symbol, an offering, a solution. But to you, she looks like a lamb being walked to the altar, not as a bride, but as a sacrifice. You try to steady your voice as the ceremony begins. You've said these words 100 times before. Do you take? But never like this. Never with the child looking up at you, eyes wide, lips parted in awe or confusion or fear. You can't tell which. The king speaks his vows. His voice is soft, almost kind. There is no cruelty in it, no mockery. He even kneels down when placing the ring on her finger, as if to meet her halfway, as if he knows this is wrong, but must do it anyway. You tell yourself this is ceremonial, that the marriage won't be consummated, that she will live in the English court, be tutored, trained, kept safe until she comes of age. But when you look into her eyes again, something in you falters. Do children understand destiny? Do they feel the weight of history pressing down before it crushes them? As you pronounce them husband and wife, the abbey holds its breath. Outside, London moves on, markets open, bells ring, horses clatter across cobblestones. But inside this sacred stone cage, a crown is placed on a child's head, and you feel it, the moment something irreversible has happened. Not love, not celebration, something else. You step away from the altar. The incense clings to your robes. You try to remember the last time a wedding made you feel like this. But there's only silence now, and the sound of a little girl being led away, one slow, heavy step at a time. The first thing they give her is a new name, not Isabella, daughter of France, not the laughing girl who once chased birds through the guards of the Louvre. No, now she is the Queen of England, and queens do not cry, not when their tutors correct their English pronunciation, not when the windows of their new chamber are too high to see the ground, not even when they wake in the night and can't remember which kingdom they're in. You watch her through the years, not as a priest anymore, but as one of the invisible many who move behind the scenes, a servant, a witness, a ghost to the grand machinery of court life. She learns quickly. She learns to curtsy low enough to please the dukes, to smile when spoken to, and to be silent when the men talk about borders and bloodlines. She learns the names of English saints, though her prayers still come out in French when she's frightened. She learns that in this palace, no one speaks of love, and yet the king visits her chambers often, not as a husband, not even as a guardian, but like something else, something softer. He brings her music boxes and illuminated books, a jeweled comb, a carved wooden bird that sings when the mechanism winds just right. She smiles for him. He smiles back. But when he leaves, she stares at the door as if waiting for it to close forever. The women whisper, "Of course." They say he sees in her the ghost of his first queen, Anne, who died in the plague. They say he is lonely. They say he is mourning. But none of them say what you feel growing in the palace corridors. Unease. Because even in silence, the walls remember. And these walls, ancient, cracked, soot-darkened, have heard too many royal secrets to sleep peacefully. One morning she asks you, Why do the nobles bow to my crown but never to my face? You have no answer, because you too have seen the looks, the ones exchanged when her name is spoken, the glances that linger a little too long on her youth, on her innocence, and the rumors, always the rumors, that some lords want war, not peace, that the marriage is a weakness, not a strength, that the child queen is a French spy in a velvet dress. You see the change in her, slowly, like frost creeping up a window pane. She watches everything now. How the lords pause their laughter when the king enters, how the gifts arrive less frequently, how even the birds in the garden seem to fall silent when she walks alone. She is only 8, but she has already learned the first rule of survival: never look lost, even when you are. You wonder as you pass her in the hallway if she still remembers the moment she became queen, or if the crown has pressed that memory so deep into her that it no longer feels like her own. And you wonder what happens to a child when she's raised not to live, but to be useful. You feel it before you hear it, the shift, like a pressure drop in the air before a storm, like the breath the forest takes before the wolves begin to howl. The palace is quieter now, not peaceful but hushed, too hushed. Servants speak in half sentences, courtiers smile without teeth. The king no longer visits her chambers, and when he does, he barely speaks. She watches him from behind the lattice screen, eyes wide. He stands at the window, staring at the river like it might carry away his crown. His robes hang loose now. His face is paler, older. His fingers tremble when he clasps them behind his back. You remember that same man kneeling to place a ring on a 6-year-old hand. Now he looks like a ghost of that moment, like a man waiting for the hammer to fall. She asks questions, but no one answers her directly. Why are soldiers patrolling the gardens? Why did Lady Margaret leave in the night? Why do the bells ring even when no one has died? You're not sure which lie to choose, so you choose none. Instead, you help her pack. One small trunk, a cloak, her comb, a carved wooden bird that no longer sings. "Where are we going?" she whispers. "To the tower, you say." And for the first time her hands shake, because even a child knows what the tower means. The journey is short but endless, through alleyways cloaked in fog, past crowds that do not cheer, past nobles who turn their heads as she passes. The guards say nothing, their armor clinking like a clock counting down. The tower looms above the city like a mouth with too many teeth. You step through the gates and it closes behind you with the finality of a tomb. Her rooms are clean, lavish even, but the windows are barred now. The locks click louder. The guards speak French with an English accent, and always with their swords resting in hand. She is still queen. Legally, technically. But no one says, "Your Majesty," anymore. Richard comes to visit once. Just once. He kneels before her again, like he did years ago, but now she is older. She notices how thin his hands are, how dark the circles beneath his eyes have grown. "They say I'm no longer king," he tells her. "Are they right?" she asks. He doesn't answer. What follows isn't a conversation. It's a goodbye, one that neither of them can name aloud. He touches her shoulder. She doesn't flinch. She wants to. She wants to scream, to cry, to hold on to something that made sense once. But instead she just says, "Will they send me home?" He looks at her. And in that silence you understand. He doesn't know. He can't promise anything anymore, not even that she will live. After he leaves, she sits in the corner. Still, too still. And somewhere below, in the dark cells of the tower, men whisper the name of the next king. You don't see the moment she stops hoping. It doesn't happen in a scream or a sob. It happens in silence. In the way she stops asking questions, stops waiting at the window, stops touching the bird that no longer sings. The tower does not kill quickly. It bleeds you in days, not minutes. She wakes each morning to the same sound, footsteps outside the door. Sometimes they pass, sometimes they stop. Each time her breath holds like a candle before wind. Richard is gone. They don't tell her how. Not officially, but she knows. You see it in her eyes the day the bells toll, but no one tells her why. You see it in the way she doesn't eat that evening, in the way she whispers his name to no one in particular. "He was kind." That's all she says. No tears, no protest. Just those 3 small words buried under a crown that no longer means anything. Weeks pass. Then one morning the guards return. But they come not with chains. They come with parchment. A letter from across the sea. Her father, the mad king of France, has demanded her return. She will be sent home. But only if she signs, if she agrees to name the new king, Henry, as the rightful ruler. If she erases 3 years of her own life with one signature, 10 years old, too young to know peace, old enough to decide a nation's future. You sit with her in the candlelight as she reads the document. She holds the quill in her hand for a long time as if it's too heavy. Not from weight, from meaning. And then she signs. But something inside her remains unsigned, untouched, unbroken. The journey back to France is quiet. The sea is gray. The wind speaks in riddles. She does not cry when she sees the shores of her homeland. She does not run when her mother opens her arms. Because she knows now, home is not a place, and peace is never permanent. She is 11. She speaks French with an English accent. She drinks wine like the ladies of Westminster. She dreams in 2 languages, and trusts neither of them. The court calls her La Reine Perdue, the lost queen. But she was never lost. She was hidden, misused, forgotten by history because her survival didn't fit the script. She will marry again. Yes. She will find a man who listens, who asks, who touches her hand not as a symbol, but as a woman. She will give birth. She will raise children. She will build gardens in her name and write letters that speak in code. She will walk through fire again, civil war, betrayal, blood on the streets of Paris. And when she dies, at 20, they will weep as if they truly understood who she was. But they won't. Only the stones will know. Only the altar that once saw a 6-year-old girl crowned with pearls, too heavy for her skull. Only the priest who blessed her with a shaking hand. Only you. Because you saw what they didn't. You saw that she wasn't just a queen. She was a mirror of how kingdoms feed on innocence, of how politics wears a child's skin like armor, of how history erases the ones who were silent, but never weak. And as her name fades from the scrolls, one truth remains. Sometimes the most tragic lives are the ones lived quietly, behind the throne,